Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Thursday morning. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Tomorrow, Friday, be broadcasting live from Scramblers. Doors do open at 6 a.m. Thursday, we've got Author of the Week today, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. That's the 8 a.m. hour. Christy Fulnecki will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. As you know, well, most of you know that she has represented a number of J6ers, so it'll be interesting to get her take on the recent pardons for many of those January 6ers, commutations for some. Of course, there are others that have not been addressed and may not be, depending on their individual and particular cases. So we'll talk with her about how this has an impact, if at all, on any of the clients that she has been or currently represents. And that, again, will be in the 7 o'clock hour this morning. It's amazing. Listen, I genuinely, if you are someone who just hates Donald Trump, and like, I just can't go through this, stay off social media. Social media, of course, it depends on what people you observe. I have a number of friends on social media that are lefties. I have seen it before, but on full display, people who are willingly making themselves miserable when they don't have to. They go to the absolute worst place possible they could go if you have any concerns about your own mental health, so that they can essentially recycle their own fears and get themselves devastated emotionally. They have themselves convinced, because of the over-the-top hysterical rhetoric out there, that Donald Trump is the worst thing ever. And like everything he does, it doesn't matter how almost even benign it is. Everything he does, or, they're throwing Elon Musk in there as well, is the single worst thing ever. I mean, we've watched over the last few days Elon Musk, who physically is an awkward guy, saying, "My heart goes out to you," having his hand over his heart and then throwing it out to the audience. And this has been declared by the media and the left. It's Heil Hitler. At first, I got to tell you, to normal people, you sound like a lunatic. You really do sound like a lunatic. Can you imagine survivors of the Holocaust watching and listening to these things? I forget if it was the girl child. Someone was telling me that one of the area schools, maybe it was a news item. Oh, is that you? That one of the area schools was going to have a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah, I think it was Nixa.
Yeah, come to the school and talk to the student. And I'm just thinking to myself, if you are a Holocaust survivor, you actually went through that stuff, to listen to the hysterics of people today and how they label everything Hitler. Oh, look, his hand went up in the air. He's Hitler. Oh, look, he's got a small mustache. He's Hitler. Oh, look, he is eating German potato salad. He's Hitler. It's like any and everything that they can label as Hitler, completely diminishing the realities and the true actual horrors of Hitler, because that's what you're doing. Imagine someone who lived with the actual reality of Hitler, and then listening to a bunch of whiny, hysterical, spoiled brats claiming that Trump is just the same thing, or Elon Musk, because he said, "My heart goes out to you," and threw his arm from his hand over his heart up into the air, that, well, that's the exact same thing. I mean, it's just like Hitler. Have you no shame? What an awful thing to observe for someone who lived under actual Hitler. I hope that whenever there is an invitation for someone like an area school here, and Sarah said she thinks it was Nixon, has an actual Holocaust survivor, that young people can maybe get reset into reality about what Hitler actually did, who Hitler actually was, instead of, because the reality of the way that the left treats it, and as far as young people, their education as to the horrors of Hitler is on the same plane as Trump and Elon Musk. Can you imagine if a person who actually lived through Hitler realizing that young people are being conditioned to think that Hitler was no worse than Elon Musk? Hitler was no worse than Donald Trump? What a sick thing to brainwash young people into believing. To diminish the actual human horrors of Hitler by comparing him to everything under the sun, or comparing everybody under the sun to Hitler. These people are sick. Absolutely sick. And it's almost as if when their fuel level of paranoid delusions starts to get a little bit low, or below the halfway mark, like a gas tank, they have to go back to social media and refeed it. I'll post a YouTube video of some random person talking about how horrible Donald Trump is, because that's proof. I mean, step away. Get a life. Do something that's actually meaningful, that's actually helpful to people. If you're so concerned about all of the horrible things that are going to happen in the world because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk and whatever else, why don't you step away from the 4, 5, 6 hours you spend scrolling on social media, making yourself miserable, and go volunteer somewhere? Go down to C Street, the Glow Center. Go to there's just countless organizations that could use your help. Feeding the hungry, clothing the homeless, helping those who are trying to escape domestic abuse situations. You can look on your little, and I mean, this isn't a bad idea for anyone, but particularly those who are just absolutely making themselves miserable deliberately by getting themselves into an echo chamber about the end of the world because of Donald Trump. Look at your time spent doing that. You've got those options on your phone. Oh, this week I spent 38 hours doing that. Do you know how much actual good you can do in the world with that 38 hours? Instead, you actually volunteer for some sort of cause? Do that. Because after all, what good do you think that you're doing simply reposting other people talking about the end of the world under Donald Trump? What positive outcome occurs when you repost something about Elon Musk being Hitler, a neo-Nazi? What comes out of that? Well, people need to know. Oh, you think there's a lack of propaganda out there? You think that there are people unaware that the media and that left-wingers have been trying to accuse Trump of being a Nazi? You think that you're going to reach those people out there? Most of the people who are following you are part of your echo chamber anyhow. They're just doing the same thing. You're not doing anything good. You're doing nothing positive whatsoever for the world, for yourself. And here's another news flash. I can't believe Trump's doing all this stuff. One of the commentators, major network, when Trump said he was going to be a dictator on day one, he's doing it. What is he doing that is dictatorial? A large portion of what he's doing is simply, it's not adding anything new. It's doing away with what Joe Biden did when he came into office. What dictatorship move has Trump made? Oh, executive orders. Oh, so signing an executive order or repealing a former executive order, that now means you're a dictator? I guess this is another one of those rules that applies only to Donald Trump. When anyone else does it, it's okay. Donald Trump does it, he's a dictator. Well, that's logical. But here's the news flash for you. All of these things that you are pitching a fit over, oh my gosh, he deleted the app that allows people from other countries just to tap a button and then they can roam freely through the United States. Oh my gosh. Oh, how could he do that? Oh, this is awful. That's why he got elected. That's called democracy. You know, you talk about that so much. Oh, we don't like that anymore? I thought this is what the left has been talking about all this time. Democracy, democracy, democracy. Oh, Trump, he's going to destroy democracy. All right, well, we saw democracy in full play. It's not like Trump is doing anything that is out of the blue. He's just doing the things that he said he was going to do. This is what he campaigned on. And the American people overwhelmingly said, yes, that's what we want you to do. And so he got elected, and he's doing what he said he was going to do. It's amazing all of the people who have run around screaming about how much they care about democracy. I'm doing air quotes there because we are a republic, but talking about the left, democracy, and how Trump is the one that's going to destroy it. Suddenly, they don't care for it so much any longer. Suddenly, an elected official being elected and then doing what that person said he was going to do if elected. Oh, we don't like that anymore, do we? No, 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 no. It's called democracy. You're watching it play out before your very eyes. Weather coming up in a moment. It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be as warm as we thought it might get to today, but we'll find out from Sarah coming up here in a moment. Right now, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 33. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 12. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 40. And on Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 49.
That story Jesse had about the new technology that local law enforcement is going to use, which it's kind of a heads up, right? And communicating with one another. You get a high-speed chase, or not even a high-speed chase, but there's some accident. You have all different vehicles that are responding to it, and just sort of so there's no accidents that occur. But also it noted that it can send messages to the different apps on your cell phones so that if you're driving around and you get that, alert, you also can be aware. That way you can perhaps take an alternate route.
I know where you're going with this.
You can take an alternate route or not get into an accident. I'm sorry. I thought it was illegal to use your phone while driving.
You're just nitpicking.
I guess I am nitpicking. So how does that work? This is... I've got to get a traffic update. And I do want to address this a bit because our government has become so detached from whether meaningful results actually occur, that when you point out, hey, you just released or are utilizing a technology that is illegal for citizens to use. And I suspect that the response will be like, oh, well, it's just, Sarah jokingly is like, oh, you're just nitpicking. I think that's probably the way to see it. So what are you supposed to do? So now we can use our cell phones in order to get what is it? Traffic update. I want to talk a little more about this story that Jesse Inman had at not really the top of the hour, but a bit after. The Greene County deputies have gotten an innovative new upgrade for their vehicles. By the way, this isn't criticism of Greene County law enforcement by specific. This is just government in general. This is a classic example of what average Americans have to deal with when it comes to government. If you're a business owner, you really know this. You'll have one division of government come in and saying, "Oh, well, you have to do this," and then the other comes in and says, "No, you can't do that." And like, well, which do I do? And they just like, well, I guess you better figure it out. Springfield's horrible about this. Never lived in a community where I have gotten so much feedback from business owners about how absolutely horrible local rules and regulations, particularly get the permits to open up as Springfield. I know that there are many that are just as bad or worse, but I just, in terms of feedback, never. But back to the story. The Greene County Sheriff's Office says they have equipped the Vehicle Safety Gateway Technology, VSG, for their patrol vehicles and integrated it with existing equipment. According to GCSO, VSG will help deputies with responder-to-responder alerting. That makes total sense. This alerts them when patrol cars might cross and make them aware of nearby patrol cars during an emergency response. Now, that makes sense. VSG also has public alerting capabilities, notifying the public, on navigation apps such as Apple Maps, Waze, and others about vehicle location. So your apps on your cell phones. Well, of course, it is illegal to use your cell phone in your car because of government. So here we have, this is what we face as citizens. And oftentimes we face these contradictions and we don't even really, know that we're facing the contradictions. It'll sneak up on us whenever we just end up in particular situations. Again, business owners have to deal with this all the time. But here we have government telling us, do not use your cell phone. If you use your cell phone, you can, while driving or in your vehicle, you can be pulled over for it. This is against the law. There are penalties at play. Then you have government in the form of law enforcement encouraging you, like, hey, by the way, now on your phone, these different apps and everything, you can. We're going to communicate with you on these to let you know. And I'm not even saying that in and of itself is a bad idea, but what are we supposed to do? I mean, am I going to get in trouble for this? I mean, these scenarios are going to occur. Oh, I'm getting some sort of alert on my phone. Here, I pull it up and I look at it, and it's from law enforcement. Oh, look, some police lights just came on behind me, pulling me over because I just broke the law. Because it is government, here's what I suspect will happen. Nothing. They'll just ignore it. Oh, well, that's just a problem. If that problem arises, we'll deal with it then. Now, you think that if that problem does arise, if that situation does occur, oh, well, I'll be okay because they'll say, oh, yeah, gosh, we didn't really think about that. Okay, you're fine to go. But that's not the way it always works. I mean, just again, and I'll use, because the feedback I get from companies and businesses, there used to be, this was like 12 years ago. There was a locally owned pizza joint. I'd go to it about once a week. The guy who owned it he worked it, usually had one other part-time employee. And he eventually bailed, largely because of issues with the city. And he had, one day, he was telling me there's some, and I think it was a state, some state, the Department of the State with regulations and so forth came in, and I had something to do with an exhaust fan or some piece of equipment, and telling him, you have to make this alteration to this. If you don't, by this time, you're going to get fined this much per day. Well, then on a more local level, whether it was Greene County or City of Springfield, I don't recall, subsequently said, no, if you do that, then we're going to fine you this much per day. You have to leave it where it is. What am I supposed to do? And each side is like, hey, I'm just telling you, this is the way it is. So no matter what he did, he was screwed. And what doesn't occur is level-headed people saying, oh, gosh, yeah, this is kind of messed up. Boy, this is a bad situation to be in. We're going to make sure we fix this. No, they're like, it's your problem. So if we think that, if we've got two different government entities. We've got the state telling you it is illegal, and law enforcement can, if they see you using your cell phone, pull you over, there's fines, potential jail time, all that sort of stuff. And then we have this announcement, hey, great new technology from law enforcement. All you got to do is pick up your phone while you're in your car and use it in order to utilize it. Now, I know that some vehicles, increasingly brand new vehicles, have apps on the dash, and which, by the way, is oftentimes much more distracting trying to use that than it is on a phone, but that's a whole different story. But the vast majority of people, the only ability they're going to have to utilize and potentially benefit from these apps is to pick up their phone while they're in their car driving. This, after all, is the whole point of it. It is dealing with traffic and law enforcement responding to a particular scene. Here's going to be an interesting one. You're using your phone. You're texting, looking at porn, whatever you're doing. Oh, you get pulled over for it. What happens if you tell law enforcement, hey, I saw you back there, and I just was checking to make sure that there wasn't some sort of alert about a high-speed chase nearby. I just wanted to make sure that I was being extra careful. What are they going to do then? Now, of course, it's government, so they'll probably just say, well, too bad, so sad. But that would be an interesting defense. I suppose it depends on the judge. If a common sense judge were dealing with a situation like that, it would be interesting to hear. You're the entity encouraging people to actually utilize this app, and so now you're arresting this individual for using an app. Now you can't prove that the individual was actually checking it for that reason, but you can't prove that he wasn't, and we kind of have this innocent until proven guilty thing theoretically in this country. We got traffic update coming up. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., if you are someone that enjoys the theater, take advantage of Local for Less, Springfield Little Theater's performance of Waitress, coming up January 31st through February 16th. It is a musical. I'm not familiar with it, but it is a musical. For $25, you can get a $50 gift certificate that you can use towards the purchase of tickets, and also a chance to win a pair of tickets to another show at Juanita K, January 28th through the 30th. Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations. That also KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high around 33. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 12. For your Friday, sunny skies with a high near 40, and on Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 49.
A couple of text messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding the news that we had earlier, Color 10, Jesse Inman, and it was this new program that local law enforcement is utilizing, and it's twofold. One, it allows emergency vehicles essentially to track one another's movements that when it's relevant if there's maybe some sort of high-speed chase, or you have perhaps not even a high-speed chase, but there's some emergency and everyone's trying to get there very quickly. And so, for example, you're racing down Glenstone and there is another emergency vehicle that is also making its way to that intersection at a, pretty high speed and they're coming down Sunshine. It allows them to see that so that it diminishes the likelihood that there will be some sort of accident between emergency vehicles. Makes sense. They also, though, talk about how this can be utilized through a number of different apps, Google Maps being one of them, to alert civilians. Well, the problem is, or the conflict in Missouri, it is illegal and punishable to utilize your cell phones in the vast majority of capacities. And so we've got a situation in which people might feel compelled or encouraged to break the law in order to utilize this device that is now available. So a couple of different comments here. Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. I think the law allows you to use navigation, media, specifically music, and maybe something else. If you're going to use your phone, make sure you always have Google Maps up and running. Well, it does under very limited circumstances. I'll read to you from MoDOT's website. Actually, this is SaveMoLives.com. It's the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety, and it covers the law, and it notes that law enforcement officers will begin issuing citations for violation of the hands-free law beginning January 1st, 2025. There's a lot of local news about that, obviously, as we rolled into the new year. Penalties: first conviction, 2 years up. First conviction in 2 years, up to $150 fine. Second, $250 fine. Third or more, up to a $500 fine. If a violation occurs in a school or work zone, fines up to $500. If a violation occurs and causes serious injury, crash, up to 6 months in jail and or fines of $1,000. If a violation occurs, causes a fatal crash, up to 7 years in prison. And by the way, Missouri already had distracted driving laws that covered all of this anyhow, but that's it clearly doesn't stop people from being distracted. So as usual, we just create new laws to do the same thing, believing that somehow it is going to stop the people who violated the first laws. They're magically going to start obeying the new ones. Missouri hands-free law. In Missouri, it's illegal to hold or support a cell phone or an electronic communication device in your hand, your lap, or other parts of the body while driving in Missouri roads. So even just holding it in your hand, did you know that? Holding it in your hand is illegal. Drivers can make or receive calls via hand-free device, such as speakerphone, or if it's already connected. So if you are somebody that has a newer vehicle with the more advanced technology to where, your phone is already, before you leave your home, before you leave the parking spot, you have it hooked up and you receive a phone call and your technology allows you to say, answer the phone, and you're able to talk that way without looking at your phone, without touching your phone, without having your phone on your lap, without having your phone in your hands. That is what you're allowed to do. What is off limits, with very few exceptions, anything that involves typing, scrolling, holding, or supporting a device while driving is off limits. In other words, again, I'm sure some people do this. You keep it on your leg, right? And,
I do that.
I'm at a stoplight, and there's a text, you look down. That is illegal. In addition, the law prohibits watching movies, videos, as well as recording, posting, sending, or broadcasting videos, even if the phone is securely mounted. Prohibited use includes, but is not limited to, dialing a number, texting, media browser, FaceTime, browsing the internet, watching videos, playing games, taking videos or photos. Staying connected and compliant. Use in vehicle mounts to support a cell phone while driving. Use hands-free or voice-operated functions such as voice-to-text or virtual assistants. Navigate with GPS map displays while the cell phone or device is mounted. Engage navigation features while parked or prior to driving. And play music or audio apps while the cell phone or device is mounted. Connect audio features while parked and prior to driving. So you... In the instances, like somebody said, well, I think if you're listening to music, but you cannot, like, you have to have it going before you start driving or moving. You can't skip songs. You can't, unless you have, again, the technology that allows you to do it with your voice without looking at your phone or having your phone, touching your phone or any of those things. Now, there are exceptions. There's some sort of emergency, 911. You see something horrific happen. That is an exception. If you are parked, obviously, first responders, government, law enforcement, they're all exempt from this.
So it says in the article, I just have a question. I'm thinking out loud. So it says that they could notify the public on navigation apps such as Apple, and basically it would send like push notifications to those phones to alert people. But it also says on this SaveMoLives.com, it says in most cases, functions that cannot be activated, deactivated, or initiated with a single swipe or a touch are in violation. Okay, so say you get this...
The push notification.
Say you get a push notification, and you click on it, and then
you've broke the law.
Well, and then you have a lock screen, and so you type in your PIN. Is that officially breaking the law?
Now, some people will know, well, if the way that a citizen can benefit from this, utilize it, and be in compliance with the law is to just always have your map up and going. Now, not on your phone. You would have to do it through your navigation system because, again, you can't, unless you have your phone mounted and you get it started before you go anywhere. But who drives around with the map on all the time?
Especially if
the vast majority. And you could argue, well, you can. Well, yeah. But we kind of start getting to the point of how much does this cost, and does it become effective if there are 80 different hoops one has to jump through in order to utilize it? How much does that component cost? Now, there's different usages here. Again, the communication just between emergency vehicle responders, that's different. But I'm sure that there's an additional cost making it available to push out to the public. And if, again, the circumstances in which an individual can actually utilize that and benefit from it are so, again, jumping through 8 different hoops in order to not violate the law, how much are we spending for that? Government, though, and this isn't a criticism of law enforcement for utilizing that, but this is just another one of those examples in which we have these contradictions in the law. And I'm sure government response, just shrug of the shoulders, and it won't be a problem. If it is, we'll deal with it at the time. And this did bring up in mind, and I brought up 2 of the articles because I remember. So here are 2 stories. Let's see, what are the dates here? I don't want to find the proper dates. All right, April 23rd. 2023. August 23rd, 2023. Headline, hands-free law takes effect on Monday. Okay? From the exact same day. Just a few days later, rather. August 28th, 2023. 5 days later. From Fox 2 Now, St. Charles asked residents to send pics of cars with illegal temp tags.
I remember that.
Yeah. Where the mayor of St. Charles wants citizens to help get drivers with expired temporary tags off the street, calling on them to take pictures of the illegal tags and send them to the city so they can pursue legal action. So just days after it first it became a law, You've got a government entity encouraging people to use their phones. You're driving around, somebody in front of you, they've got expired tags. Take pictures of it. It's just examples of it's government making life better and more simple for all of us. This is why anytime government says, hey, let us take care of that, we'll do a fantastic job. This is the sort of result that you get. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Someone asked, does this mean dash cams are illegal, that is recording during driving? I don't think so, because it's mounted. And this specifically is talking about cell phones. So I don't believe that's the case. But here's an interesting one. MoDOT has an app. You have to look at the screen to use where no hands-free device allows you to access app content. How has MoDOT addressed the use of their app designed to assist drivers illegally to be used by drivers? Well, of course, this is, again, one of those instances where they're not going to. But yeah, no, that's true, particularly in inclement weather when arguably you should be paying even more attention to what you're doing. They have what is actually a pretty good map. I every time there is any sort of winter weather in particular, I utilize it. It shows you, you pull up the map and to this person's point, there's no way to navigate any of this using your voice. You have to use your hands, and it allows you to look at the map and see where there are accidents. It's not just for inclement weather, but you're driving 44 to St. Louis, and it lets you know if there's any sort of traffic issues, if it's down to one lane over this particular bridge because of construction, and then when it comes to road, fully covered, partially covered, clear. But yeah, if you're driving about now, I guess the argument would be, well, you just have to make sure that you only use it, when you're not driving ahead of time. Well, that really diminishes a lot of time that it could be useful. There was a story that is, I think, about a week old. Missouri Congressman reintroduces UPS Pony Up Act for late fees. A trio of Missouri congressmen have a message for the U.S. Postal Service: deliver the mail on time or pony up. A recent audit found Kansas City had some of the slowest and worst mail service in the nation. That included mail sitting at Kansas City postal stations for as many as 13 days without being delivered. One of our dogs we've got a dog that has a number of prescriptions, and the vet has really shifted people to utilizing their online prescription service. I'm sure it alleviates foot traffic. It makes things easier for them, and in some instances, more convenient for the consumer. Instead of calling them and ordering it and then going in to pick it up, you just do it on the app. Well, the problem is, and I just even looking at the dates, I finally got an order for prescription, and it's like, oh, the prescription that was approved on January 6th arrived, and this was on the 21st. Right here, and it sat for, I think, 10 days in the Springfield facility. It's infuriating. We had talked about this last Friday that there's this app you can utilize to track your package, and presumably the purpose of the app is to eliminate frustration or to diminish it because, well, if you're wondering where your package is, why hasn't it arrived, this allows you to track it. But ironically, for a lot of people, including myself, it makes it even more frustrating because I sit and look at it sitting in the Springfield facility for 10 days. Just sitting there. And when you're talking about prescriptions, whether, dogs, but for people, a lot of people get their prescriptions that way. The audit also cited late and canceled trips and low compliance with scanning requirements contributing to inaccurate data. Congressman Mark Alford said Thursday, again, this is from last week, his office received a complaint from a constituent waiting to receive a check mailed 10 days ago to pay for his cancer medication. He also cited a hatchery that sends chicks in the mail that loses $40,000 a month because they die before they're delivered. Alford said there's supposed to be a 6-day guarantee, but it's not happening and there's no accountability. He joins other Missouri Congressmen Emmanuel Cleaver and Sam Graves, who introduced bipartisan legislation that calls on the post office to pony up for the customers' late fees. Cleaver said we need bipartisan action to ensure these costs are not levied on hardworking Americans who have no ability to prevent the delays. I'm proud to introduce the Pony Up Act with Reps Grave and Alford. It would require the Postal Service to reimburse people if there is a late charge. What's happening now is people are sending in their checks to the mortgage company. People still do that. If the checks don't get there, they're charged a late fee sometimes. It adversely affects their credit. That's wrong. Now, there's a number of reasons. I got to take a break, but I want to talk about this further. That this just isn't going to work. Number one, who ultimately ends up paying for that? You do anyway. While the post office is not funded by taxpayer dollars like a lot of other what we consider to be government entities. Post office is sort of this weird situation, but they're funded by you as the consumer anyhow. But you know what a hassle? Think about that. Most people would not use this. All right, so you have a late fee because of the post office. Your late fee is $15. Given that this entire thing is about the poorly run, inefficient postal service, can you imagine what you're going to have to go through to recoup that $15 from the post office? The vast majority of people are not going to bother going through that hassle. What needs to happen is people need to lose their jobs. People who are ultimately running these facilities, the ones who are the problem, and I don't know, it may, the people who run the local facility, they may be hamstrung by whoever's above them at some regional facility. I don't know the answer to these questions, but people need to be fired, not even as punishment, but just, I know this is a crazy idea, to get somebody in there who runs it properly. That's the answer. I don't believe that there would be whomever the problem people are within the Postal Service today in terms of running it, do you think they're going to care that, we're going to now be responsible for paying for people's fines that even bother to try to go through and collect it from? You think that's the thing that's going to make them go, well, I better change the way I do things around here? It's not going to. I'm not saying that the motivations aren't good here, but this is another instance in which you have elected officials that are coming up with an idea to pat themselves on the back. We're really going to hold them accountable. That is not going to change anything, and it's not going to make anything better for anyone. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki joining us in the next hour. Among other things, we will get the latest update on her J6 clients and how the pardons have affected them. And I'm sure some other stuff as well. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. We were talking about this app. Jesse and will probably have the story again here at Greene County law enforcement. It's utilizing technology to make things more efficient, to diminish the likelihood of accidents, and it allows the different. I think maybe all emergency vehicles, but if you got a number of vehicles that are all rushing to a scene, or maybe it's a chase, they can really kind of track one another so that you diminish the likelihood you get into an accident with one another. But it's also available for the public to use, and we were just talking about the potential difficulties of that, given that it is illegal to utilize your cell phone, to look at it while driving, to pick it up while driving, to even have it on your lap while driving, probably even to think about it if they could prove that. And there are very limited instances with technology in which some people would be able to utilize it, but that aside. So depending on how, because some people are like, well, maybe it does like an Amber Alert thing or like a voice alert, but the way it sounds is you have there's a map and it shows you where the emergency vehicles are. And someone said, so if you are the person that is the reason for the high-speed chase, could you not then just see where they are? Like if you're being chased by law enforcement.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Well, and my first thought was, well, I don't know that it's advanced enough to be like real time, but if it isn't, then it wouldn't be useful for positive reasons either. So,
right. Yeah.
And it's not uncommon for criminals to listen to police scanners. It's why so often police officers, they'll go dark, if you will. They'll communicate. Sometimes, in fact, if you see two police vehicles that are in a parking lot side by side, it's because they're going to maybe go serve a warrant or do something, and they don't want to talk about it over the system, because sometimes criminals are monitoring the scanners and they can hear that. So it's not uncommon for criminals to utilize that sort of technology to evade law enforcement. And so, yeah, I mean, you do wonder if any criminal would be forward thinking enough. They get themselves in a high speed chase, like, hey, pull up that app. We can see where they're coming. Oh, they're coming down, Braemar. We better take a left here. Be like playing a video game, I guess. It could actually be lots of fun.
Grand Theft Auto Springfield.
Yeah. So we are going to chat with Christy Folnicki. She is in studio with us. I don't know why you haven't actually said anything yet. Usually,
just turned on.
No, that stops you from talking. Obviously, big news for the country and for you as an attorney
this week.
January 6th. So we're going to get the traffic and Jesse Emmons news here, and we'll dive right into what effect this has had on any of your clients this morning. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Now the latest news update.
First alert forecast from Cullerton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 33. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 12. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 40. And on Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 49.
Christy Fulnecki is here.
Yes.
January 6th serves roughly 1,500 pardons. There is some, I think, commutations. There's also others that are still being evaluated. And I know that when all this stuff was being announced, people were texting us asking, well, what about Christy's client or clients? So what's up? What's the story?
Oh, yeah. First of all, what an awesome week. I mean, this has been the greatest week. Well, it was... we didn't have any heads up because we got an email last week and we were supposed to list our clients and the status and where they were and everything. And so we were thinking, oh, well, we're going to find out ahead of time, because at first we thought, it's actually on the listserv of attorneys. I had said, I bet they're going to be it's just going to be a blanket pardon because it's going to take forever to try to figure out, who did what. And so what happened is we found out the same time everybody did, but we were listening. I mean, everybody was listening to every word Trump was saying. And so we were all glued to our TV because that's how everybody found out. Nobody found out any differently. And so then, I was texting my client. One of my clients is on house arrest in Missouri. And the other one from New Jersey was actually in a Wisconsin prison. And so we were, at least I couldn't get in touch with the one in prison, but I was texting them, Jared here in Missouri. And so he kept asking me, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I mean, we're trying. So it's kind of a crazy thing that you think you normally find out something from the court, but you're literally like glued to the TV trying to find out.
Well, here's a question that it just popped up. As you're describing all of this, there is, at least in my mind, when they're talking about pardoning all these individuals, I'm thinking, oh, these are all people that are in the D.C. jail, but this could be people.
No,
yeah, there's
like
a lot
all
of
over
people.
the country.
Yeah. I hadn't even really thought, because there's so much focus on those that are being held and that have been held for years in the D.C. jail. We forget that there's still some people at home, house arrest, and
that's another thing. That place is horrible. That is a third world country. I can't stand the DC jail, and I hope that they close it. I hope Congressman Burleson, I hope they close that stupid thing. So anyway, but that's just actually a jail. So, a lot of them were in there forever because they were awaiting trial. So it wasn't like they were sentenced and they were still there.
Right.
They were, so, a lot of them had been shipped all over the country to different prisons. So I kept, the way that I found out really is that, they said, oh, the White House. I remember one of the commentators saying that they had a new website. So the executive order button was on there. So I kept hitting refresh on my phone, and that's how I finally got the language. And then, I read it a couple of times before I called him back and then told him what was going on. But so since he, the one in Missouri, he had not gone to trial. And so his was dismissed. But then, he didn't get the official, orders until I think it was a day or two later. And then actually Chris Quaglin, he's from New Jersey. He ended up getting 12 years. They pulled him out on Monday night. He didn't know what was going on. But I didn't realize that for the past 5 months, he's been put in something called the SHU, which he didn't have access to the internet or phone or anything. It sounded kind of like solitary. He was a little, they've totally destroyed everyone's lives. Right. And so he was very shaken up. So I didn't really ask him what exactly happened, because when they were in the DC jail, we could talk to them through a portal. Of course, it was being monitored. But he said he did an interview. It must have been because he was sentenced in May, a few months after that. And then I guess the FBI found out he did an interview, and the FBI said that he can have access to the telephone, internet. So he hasn't talked to anybody for 5 months. I didn't realize that because he had been sentenced, and then his appeal was being I wasn't doing his appeal. I let him use a public defender, but they use a public defender in Puerto Rico. I mean, that's a whole other thing. And so he didn't know what was going on, and then they came and they pulled him out Monday night. He knew he'd probably get pardoned, but it's a crazy thing. Like, you look at I'm kind of surprised for the most part in social media when I post things about it. Liberals aren't jumping on and saying much, but somebody said, oh, well, what about all the police officers that were injured? And I'm like, show me a video where they were injured, because all the videos supposedly with my client in Missouri that assaulted a police officer, there's no video of that.
Right.
And the video that supposedly that he was assaulting a police officer, they pushed the bike rack over, and the woman that got hurt is not even in the video. She fell and tripped,
Right.
and then I think.
Well, and I think the position that a lot of people take is that those that did legitimately assault a police officer, they should be, they should face punishment, but not more than other people who do it.
Yeah,
This is the problem. And they keep asking these questions of, they're trying to make it. I mean, we know what they're doing, but the media is like, well, now there was one of these individuals that was convicted of assaulting a police officer, and I love. It's like, okay, what about the other 1,499? Or
Yeah.
It's like, are you not? Why aren't we talking about those? But it isn't whether or not they were punished. Were they punished to a much more severe degree than people who weren't Trump supporters? That's the problem. That's where the problem is. And that's what
Yeah.
I've said from the beginning, that a way to present this and to approach it is anyone who, whether it's, commuting the sentence or pardon, but anyone who has been disproportionately punished above anyone else who has committed these same sort of offenses is going to be out. Because we are not supposed to give people longer sentences because of political reasons.
Yeah.
And
the whole thing is such a mess. Chris Quaglin and, the Judge McFadden, I mean, he was actually a Trump appointee, but he was saying, that Chris was the worst of society. I mean, the video that and I didn't have him for trial. I had him after he had agreed to the sentencing or the stipulated trial. So I only had him for sentencing. But, I mean, the videos I saw is that he was, chanting and all this stuff. And he did, fall over onto a police officer. But Antifa had pushed him. And, I mean, he was being mouthy, which, okay, so you spend a couple of days in jail.
Right.
But he was in the D.C. Jail, just in jail for 3 years, over 3 years in the D.C. jail. And then, then he's basically by himself for whatever this has been. It'll be a year in May, and he got out. I mean, and in the meantime, he had a newborn. So there's a 4-year-old he's never seen. Right. His wife got divorced in the meantime. I tried to help him on that, and she's in New Jersey. The New Jersey Times contacted me a couple of days ago because they want to do another story on him. But I mean, he had celiac disease, and so his diet, DC. I mean, and he was also transported in the meantime. But it was so bad. They transported him right before his trial, his divorce trial, so he couldn't show up, and he ended up losing everything. And he was an electrician, no criminal record,
Right.
actually supported the police. I mean, just terrible what they've done. And then my other client, in Farmington, Missouri, so he had an ankle monitor. It was funny because we kept texting and everything, and he's the one that I was able to bring back to Missouri after the hearing I had. And him and his co-defendant was his attorney is in St. Louis, so he used the same motion I did, and it was during Christmas of 23 when we did the hearing. So he's been home for, thank goodness he was not in the DC jail. And I said, I'm hearing that people are just cutting their ankle monitors off. I mean, and he said, okay, well, I'm going to take my wife out to dinner and then see what happens. And then he sent me a picture. He's like, I just cut it off. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, I said, just mail it in, because I mean, what are you going to do? Because, and then the whole thing with the DC jail. And then we were all watching that because there was live stream because they wouldn't let them out
Right.
of the jail.
I know.
I mean, I'm telling you, I've talked about this a lot. I mean, I feel like I have on the show, but that place is so bad and people hardly speak English. And when my one client, Jared in Missouri, when he was arrested and taken there was standing water and rats running everywhere. And they put him and the co-defendant from St. Louis in solitary confinement. And then it was just the most horrific conditions.
You think about the side-by-side comparison of this and the overthrowing of Assad in Syria and the release of
right.
political prisoners there, and those similarities, even the way you describe some of these people that were political prisoners in Syria, when they were released, they hadn't had access to anything. They didn't know what was going on. They weren't allowed to communicate with people. They were essentially put in solitary confinement. Some of them never faced even trial. They just were put in there. And here, because new leadership came in, or, well, old leadership went out, they were released. And you look at just that's not a positive sign for us when, because of what the Biden administration has done, we are mirroring a country like Syria.
Yeah.
You have
And
these
people-
people
yeah.
that new leadership, they're released. Some haven't been able to talk to their families. They've been cut off. They've been in these cells with rats and standing water. It's like Syria.
Yeah, and it's crazy because when and this is, in November of 2023. So this is quite, a few years after it happened when they were picked up. And it's crazy that it was something like 3 or 4 days they convene a grand jury, and all of a sudden we get an indictment in like 3 days. And then there was rumors, with the trial that they were using all the same jurors for the trials in DC. I mean, that was such a joke. I mean, this whole entire thing needs to be investigated. But the DC jail, like, they wouldn't let the attorneys, in the beginning especially, they turned the attorneys away so they couldn't see their clients. And I mean, you have to raise hell to even see your client.
Right.
And I was very, that's the only time I've been a little worried for my safety, as far as, like, they could put me in there
Right.
and I
Disappear you.
Yeah, I would disappear. And they won't even, for a long time, they wouldn't even let congressmen in there and senators. And so, I mean, it's terrible. And, when you go in there, you can't take any ID. You can't take anything. And I think I had talked about that. I went up to see my client, and I had my purse, and I'd already gone through security. And the lady's like, well, you can't have your purse. I said, do you realize I'm an attorney? Like,
Right.
I have my purse. This is my stuff. I'm not going to leave it down there.
Right.
A bunch of criminals.
It's not like you're hanging out
your
with general
stuff.
population, sneaking smokes in or something. Well, something, you were talking about video and all the videos. And, of course, we've got monitors in here, and I see on the broadcast, they're showing, they show all the rioting and everything over and over again. The video that they never, ever, I've never once seen on any mainstream network, the footage aired, and that is Ashley Babbitt getting shot.
Yeah.
And it exists.
That's right.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It exists. And I'm telling you right now,
Oh, they never played that on TV?
I've never seen that on
Oh,
TV.
yeah.
But let
That's
me
a good-
tell you why. Because if ever there was on video a clear case visual
Yes.
of
Mhm.
somebody shooting an unarmed person that was not within distance of them to cause them harm, that was it. I mean, you see it. There was a door between her and there were other if you've seen the video, there are other law enforcement officials that are closer to her, and they're just sort of trying, I think, to keep things under control. And then you have this psychopath nut that, by the way, was pardoned by Biden for doing this.
Oh, yeah,
he was
yeah,
one of those pardoned, who is on the other side of a door, and there's like a window that, people are trying to crawl through it, but she's not armed. There's no stop or I'll shoot that at all. He's in a very safe distance from her. There's no way she could have, even if she wanted to, harm him, and he shot and killed her.
Yep.
That's why they do not show that video.
Well,
if she really, to make the point here,
Yeah.
and then we got to take a break.
Oh, okay,
Pissy
okay.
Fulnecki here with us. If that was absolutely justified, then that means that you would think the left would want to show that. Look at what a danger she was. This is what they were
Yeah,
facing.
right.
This is how dangerous the situation was. Here's an example of a Trump supporter threatening the life of law enforcement. But amazingly enough, they never show the video. And it's because even they know, because they all have seen it,
Yeah.
that is a clear-cut case of execution.
Yeah.
And Biden pardoned him for it.
Yeah.
For murdering a voter of
I
Donald
mean,
Trump.
I'm so glad that they have this committee, and I hope they find out what's happened. Because, I know I have to take a break, but my client in Missouri, I had mentioned this, that there were only a few videos of him, and one of the videos, the cops are actually uncuffing him, and he's, fist bumping the other police officer and talking to him, and he's very friendly with them, and
Right,
thank you for
yeah.
your service. These people were patriots.
Most of our
Thank you,
listeners, I
every-
imagine, have seen that video. It was one that really went around.
Yeah, and that was Jared, and thank goodness he got home. His wife's gonna have a baby, but
Well,
He was one
regarding
of the good stories.
Yeah, Molly Hemingway has a piece regarding the different investigations, and Representative Loudermilk has been instrumental in leading one of those investigations. But the Federalist has a piece this morning that the J6 investigation is actually going to move to a judiciary committee.
Yeah, I
So
heard that.
yeah, so that is supposed to allow for some additional. Perhaps ability to determine what has gone on here. We got to get a break. Got traffic as well. Christy Fulnecki with us more ahead. I'm Nick Reed. Coming up next Wednesday, the 29th, we are going to be doing a special fundraising show for our Heroes Breakfast. You know that we, for years and years and years, we've been doing with a number of different partners, and now it's Scramblers, about once a month, breakfast for veterans. And increasing popularity means increasing funds, and we're reaching out for you or to you for help in this. St. George's Donuts, the Battlefield National location, totally, completely incredibly generous, donating as many donuts as are needed, and it's going to be sort of a drive-up deal, donuts for donations. Warrior's Journey will be there with the ability to take electronic payment if you don't have cash on you. Any donation, whatever it is going to be extremely helpful to help make sure that we are able, with our partners, to continue having these Heroes Breakfasts. So 6A to 9A, this is going to be next Wednesday from 6A to 9A at St. George's Donuts. We're going to be doing it in the parking lot, so you don't even have to get out of your vehicle. The Battlefield National location, and 100% of the proceeds, thanks to St. George's Donuts, are going to go to pay for future veterans breakfast with our Heroes Breakfast. So that, mark your calendar. Don't forget next Wednesday.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high around 33. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 12. For your Friday, sunny skies with a high near 40. And on Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 49.
Home buy needs, big, small, anything in between. Maybe you're doing buying and selling all at the same time. You're trying to navigate that. Very stressful it can be. It's a huge, huge purchase, and you think about all the things that could go wrong, and that's where Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, comes in. She is incredible at what she does. One of the areas, particularly if you are dealing with a situation which maybe you're trying to sell your home and then somebody says, we'll buy it, but we need you to fix this. You know, the sidewalk's cracked, uneven. We want that fixed. There's some termite damage. We need that fixed. We've got a water leak over here. Some water damage. We want that fixed. And you're like, okay, I mean, I guess I'll just get online and find someone. Emily has all those contacts. She works with those people just on a consistent basis, so she can help you navigate through that. We've seen some reviews and talked with some folks like, she just handled it for me, didn't even have to worry about it. That's what you get when it comes to home buying, home selling with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Christy Fulnecki is with us this morning.
I just wanted to say a few more things too. I mean, the whole J6 thing is, I mean, that's going to be studied because, I mean, even I look back at, it's just interesting. You had judges like, we had Moss that was appointed by Obama that was, you know, very nice and kind of, you could tell he would work with the defendants as far as getting them home and everything. And then you had McFadden that was appointed by Trump, who just was
psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. And then, you know, the treatment by even the U.S. Marshals in the Midwest, they seemed like they were friendlier, you know, to their cause and what had happened. And the people in D.C. treated these guys, even the marshals, like in the district and federal court, treated them like they had just murdered, you know, 30 people. But the thing that I hope that they can do, I'm sure if anybody, Kash Patel is going to be able to do this, but the involvement of those FBI agents during these hearings, and I know when I had the hearing to get Jared home to Missouri, that these FBI agents are talking about how horribly these people are for stating what they believe in and saying that this is the people's house. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I mean, these are people that are just speaking.
Yeah.
And I mean, and
it's
these
that
are
whole First Amendment thing.
Yeah. And so these are people that are testifying, and you're thinking, this is the FBI.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that
scary.
they're gonna. I mean, but it's real life stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And
But Trump's the dictator.
Yeah. I mean, and to think, you know, in the beginning, people have to remember these, and still later on, that these defendants were beaten in jail in D.C. and other places, and you know, like food was withheld, and a lot of the assaulting charges in D.C., they get out the next day and have community service, and I've talked about that before. So, I mean, I really think they just need to close.
And a lot of the people on the left who pitched fits whenever pictures came out of Abu Ghraib terrorists being, quote, tortured because they were letting dogs bark at them and so forth, have no problem with J6ers being treated even worse than that. Well, they deserve it. You know, they tried to overthrow the government. That's their twisted mindset.
Well, I don't know. I hope that we learn from this, but it's a scary thing. I mean, people have no idea what these people went through. And then to have, you know, you might have talked about this on your show, but then it took a couple of days to even get out of the DC jail and to get out. And I was hearing, because the listserv with all the attorneys on it, they were not releasing some of the prisoners until the governors and some of the senators got involved in different states. Right, yeah. So it wasn't even just DC. Like, they had to get governors involved to get them out. And then there was a live stream that everyone was watching of the DC jail, and they just wouldn't let them out. Like, I don't care.
One of the text messages coming in, changing subjects to some degree here. The text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. You know, we've got the live video stream that's on YouTube, and people who watch it or who just know me know that sometimes physically I'm animated, especially with my hands and my arms. And they sent a snapshot of the live feed, warning that I should be pretty careful because otherwise they may get on me like Elon Musk. You know,
Did you?
because I'm waving my arms around. I got caught. I've been a secret Nazi all this time. No one knew, but I
Don't even hide it.
Yeah, you don't even try to hide it anymore.
Oh my gosh, how stupid is that whole thing?
These people, they're insane.
I know.
They're nuts. They really are.
It makes him even probably more mad that it doesn't upset the Republicans. That they think is funny.
I got a text and it was Babylon Bee headline, and it was to the effect, it was something along the lines of liberals take a pause in chanting for the death of Jews in order to accuse Elon Musk of being a Nazi.
Well, I mean, they're probably like grasping at straws trying to figure out what to complain about. I mean, because you had it was so the day that it was so patriotic on Monday, and I mean, everybody was
That's
happy.
what they've reduced themselves to.
Kids, I mean,
it's what they've reduced themselves to.
And it was just amazing. Yeah. And so what are you going to complain about?
They're just sitting there waiting. Oh, look, it's Hitler.
Yeah.
Look, he's secret. He revealed himself.
And somebody was posting on my social media. Well, he didn't even put his hand on the Bible. I'm like, are you kidding me? It was rushed if you're watching it. I mean,
I know.
The whole entire thing. And they're just grasping at something they can complain about. But,
Crazy.
Man, these Democrats are just so miserable, aren't they?
Yes. Speaking of, watching the way people flip out over Trump declaring through executive order that when it comes to all things government, we're going back to the science-based, and whenever we're talking about human beings, female and male.
Yeah.
We're going back to the way that it's always been since the beginning of time, and that till recently it always was. Well, you would think that it's always been, 82 different genders, and all of a sudden Trump, the way they are behaving, and so here I grabbed this story. I thought it was so perfect. ACLU lawyer calls females non-transgender women in rant about Trump executive order. So now, according to the left, you are like a subcategory. Women, you are by default just you're a non-transgender woman. So, you are this subcategory.
Think about it.
Think about all of the different classifications the left has put women in. You're birthing people.
Yeah, right.
You have a bonus hole. Remember that one?
Yeah.
That you're a person. You're
segments on the radio.
You're a person with a bonus hole. I think that was the CDC or something. It was some government. This is the insanity that Trump's executive order is getting us away from. And here you've got you're not a woman. You're a non-transgender woman.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all I can say is those people right there and that lawyer, they all have mental illness.
Well, and so I've got these two stories that are somewhat contradictory. I wanted to talk about this stuff here. All right, one.
Okay.
Wicked star Ariana Grande calls Trump executive order recognizing only male and female an attack on trans people. All right, well, okay, whatever. But somebody tell me, what is a trans person?
I know, that's right.
But I mean, really, what is a trans person? Maybe I'm wrong here. I thought a trans person was somebody who was we'll even use the term assigned at birth male, but was actually female, or assigned at birth female and actually male. The whole trans ideology is based off the idea that there is two genders.
Yeah.
Because it's saying that, no, I'm actually this one, not this one. So not only is saying there is male and female in terms of genders, that isn't an attack on trans people. It's a reinforcement of the very premise of their entire argument.
Yeah.
They just say, I'm the other one. That's what they say. Do these people even think about what they're talking about?
You're a mixture, or you're mixed with an animal or something.
The official dictionary term for a transgender person, in case we were all confused.
Well, yeah, as of today.
A transgender person is someone whose gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. Transgender people can identify as male or female.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the stupidity of it. So you have these people running around that are saying recognizing two genders is anti-trans when trans is based off of the fact that there are two genders.
Yeah, right.
I am
she
so
was listening
tired.
to Ariana
I am
Grande.
so tired of stupid people. I am getting so fed up of this stupidity. Now,
But we just won an election, so I mean, they're not going
oh,
to.
I know. And you're right, it's true. Now, here actually, I completely agree with this. Demi Lovato tells trans, non-binary fans, quote, "will get through Trump order recognizing only two genders." She said, "If you are trans or non-binary like me, please know that I see you, I feel you, I'm with you. You're validated, you're loved, you're not alone. No one can take away our identities, and no one can tell you who we are or aren't. We'll get through this. I love you." Now, actually, I support her message here. Do whatever you want. You do not need this whole idea that your happiness, your mental health is dependent on whether the government
I know.
in
That's right.
written orders refers to male and female, or what does that have to, if your happiness is tied to that,
Yeah.
you have very serious problems. I fully 100%, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, support Demi Lovato's message here, which I suspect she thinks it's, somehow, I don't know, in defiance of Trump. But don't worry about that. This does not have to change your life. You don't have to think you're anything other than what you think what you want to think. You want to think that you're this or that or non-binary, whatever. Trump's executive order does not have to change that.
Yeah.
You do not have to change anything about what you think, what you feel. Continue to do that.
It's approval so much.
But this is the psychotic approach that the left has taken when it comes to people and sexual orientation, and they convince them that their happiness is reliant on everybody approving of them.
Yeah, I know that's
which is the opposite of ultimate happiness. Ultimate true happiness is when you don't worry about, you do not need other people's approval.
Yeah.
In order to be happy. That's how I am. Especially when it comes to strangers. I do not need the approval of these people over here that, when it comes to my belief system. Marriage between man and a woman. I don't care whether you believe it or not. I am perfectly happy. Do believe what you want, but this insistence on getting people addicted to the need for everyone to support them and accept them for who they are. If your entire happiness is built upon other people accepting you, you are in for life.
Well, isn't that the basis of being a liberal? I mean, that you want to be dependent on other people. And these celebrities are so arrogant. I mean, maybe they do have quite a following, but I mean, come on, Demi Lovato has quite the past, okay? She's a confused woman.
And she can continue to be.
Yeah.
Trump's executive order does not mean that she can no longer be confused. She can be as confused as she wants to be. So I love this. This is great audio. And then we got to take a break. And then I don't know if we'll get to this other audio as well. All right. So the Canadian Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, he was on television. And a reporter was, of course, he's a conservative up there, and he's increasingly popular. So everything Trump does that's horrible, they're asking him, do you support this? Do you support that? And when it comes to two genders, of course, well, do you support Trump on this?
Stay on the job, President Trump signed an executive order, the U.S. government only recognizing two genders, male, female. They're unchangeable. If elected as prime minister, is that something that you're going to kind of walk in line with, or what are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as prime minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Well, there's personally.
Okay.
We'll say cis man.
That's good.
There are people that.
Me too. I'm a man.
Well, you're a man. Yeah.
Some
gender. Yeah, they say they're gender neutral. They're they're a trans person. Is that something that you would recognize here, whereas in the States, at least with their U.S. government, the way they're seeing it, there's only two?
I'm only aware of two, but I mean, if you come up with another list, then you're welcome to do that. But I'm aware of two, and as far as I'm concerned, we should have a government that just minds its own damn business and leaves people alone.
He gets asked these questions as if he's the extreme absurd one, but he makes them essentially, well, explain your premise. But there is no premise for them. So this whole thing like, oh, Trump is awful because he only 2 genders. Well, what are the other ones?
Yeah,
and the person asking the question doesn't even know. Well, and then he's, well, some people say they're trans and non-binary. Neither of those negate the concept that they're 2 genders.
Yeah.
Again, trans is, oh, I'm actually female, not male, or I'm male. That is based off of the idea of 2. Non-binary is still an acknowledgement that there's only 2 genders, just saying I'm not one of them.
Well, and the funny thing is that the reporters sound like it was going to be this big gotcha thing.
Yeah.
And turned it right back.
I'm a man. Okay.
Turn of common sense. I mean, defeat your argument. I mean, it was funny when Trump was signing all the executive orders and he was talking, and explaining things, and it was like, and then when he was talking about J6 too, he said, "Don't you think they spend enough time in prison and jail?" He would just make these comments, and then the reporters would say things.
We got a traffic update. I'll see if we can time out one other bit of it.
Yeah.
It's in the same arena as all of this. All right, I want to play this other audio. Now, this is Pierce Morgan. He's got a panelist. One of them is an influencer, staunch Democrat Party spokesperson by the name of Harry Sison. And this again is, people are under attack. Trans people are under attack because Donald Trump is taking us back to the way it's always been, where we recognize the science of 2 genders and only 2 genders.
Do you think there should be more than 2 genders in America?
Yeah, I don't know what that executive order means. I don't know what the president declared.
It means there are 2 genders, male and female. Do you disagree with that?
How many genders are there, Harry?
Yeah,
Come on, little guy. How many genders are there?
Again, these guys don't know what they're talking about, so they won't be able
Harry,
to
how
answer.
many genders are there? How many genders are there?
What the league? I'm gonna use Joe Biden's answers. At least 2. At least 2. That satisfies
How many more
you
are
guys
there
got going.
than female?
At least 2. There's at least 2.
Male and female.
Like human brain.
Donald Trump says there's male and female.
Okay, Dave.
How many more are there after male and female, Harry?
There's at least 2. Now, anyway, let me get back.
There's at least 2. What are the other ones?
There's at least 2.
What are the other ones?
Let's try it this way. What is the other gender?
It's so funny how these. It's so funny how these conservatives just get time to lie on this show, but when I'm speaking, they all interrupt and there's no problem.
Just be asked a very
Relax.
Harry, if there are at least 2 genders, how many more are there, male and female?
You asked me about Donald Trump's executive order. I'm trying to explain how legally it makes absolutely no sense and it's going to get sued in court. Then we go into culture wars with Dave Rubin and this Ferguson guy asking how many genders are there.
No, I'm asking
question. They're screaming at it doesn't matter.
Harry, nobody.
Oh, God, this
And
child.
I'm asking you, Harry, how many genders
I've
are
answered
there?
your question.
Harry,
I've answered your question.
Harry, how many genders are there?
There are 100.
Hang on, hang on, Ben. I've got
less than 100. I answered the question.
yes, Cornell.
Cornell West kind of goes off, and so Cornell West goes so far off the beaten path. Even the Democrats like, well, I don't necessarily agree with him.
Yeah,
But the
that's right.
point is, they build a premise that doesn't even exist. So when you're like, well, wait a minute, you have to define this. So you're saying that there's more. So how many are there? They can't give an answer.
Yeah.
Because there isn't one.
Well, just
because
wait,
it's all
yeah.
made up.
Yeah. Well, just wait the next few years now that people feel comfortable with independent thinking and common
Yeah.
sense is coming back. You're going to have
Right.
a split in the party probably with Democrats that it's going to be all the wackos. And so it's fine with me. The new American Party will win.
Their attempt to this whole gender thing and the way that they are incapable of answering how many genders there are because it's all a made up concept is similar to whenever they're like, we don't support abortion until birth. And then you ask them, okay, well, then when do you support it becoming illegal? Well, I don't. They can't answer it.
Yeah, I know.
Because there is no point that they, and it exposes the fact that they build their entire argument off of absolutely nothing whatsoever. Chrissy Fulnecki, thank you so much. Appreciate it greatly. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
We got a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. When it comes to the hills that Democrats are apparently choosing to die on, they're picking the ones in which they are most unpopular. Illegal immigration and all of this gender stuff. There are no two issues in which the vast majority of Americans are so against Democrats, but it's like that's what they decide they want to fight on. And they're losing it's not partisan. It is bipartisan in opposition to them. There's an editorial in the Daily Caller. Former U.S. Olympian, lifelong Democrat Inga Thompson flips to Trump on one key issue, and it's this issue. This is a lifelong hardcore Democrat. And she said, this time around, my position is if Trump is going to protect women, I'll vote for him. This is the biggest threat to women I can think of happening in my generation. There's a story in the Telegraph, Oliver Brown, Donald Trump could change everything for women in sports. President-elect's vow to keep men out of women's sports has gained support from across the political divide, including lifelong Democrats. You notice an issue that is so prevalent right now. You don't have news outlets, particularly local news outlets, going to local Democrats asking them where they stand on these issues. You think that this would be a no-brainer. Oh, in fact, the news leader has a whole get ready for Crystal Quaid to run for state Senate propaganda piece building her up. They don't ask her any questions about any of this and her political party being in opposition to the majority of Americans on these issues. It's remarkable how they protect Democrats from answering these questions. Next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a special show asking for your help to fund or to help fund our Future Heroes Breakfast, something we've been doing for over a decade now, providing breakfast along with partners, thanks to partners, around once a month to veterans. Scramblers, of course, a huge help with this. Air Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, Delta Roofing, Warrior's Journey. But the increasing popularity just, it's... the stuff costs money. And that combined with over the years, oftentimes you people reach out and you're like, hey, can we buy a breakfast for a veteran? How does that work? You're like, no, it's taken care of. But we've gotten to the point where we can use your help. And thanks to St. George's Donuts, their generosity in completely 100% donating donuts for next Wednesday. We're going to be doing the show at the St. George's Battlefield National location. Come by between 6 and 9. Don't even have to get out of your car. And donuts for donations with 100% of those proceeds going to help pay for the Future Heroes Breakfast. We're kind of hoping that we'll be able to get it for a year's worth, and this is going along with the donations, if you will, that come from those partners, including Scramblers every month. But with that increasing popularity, we need more. That's what it all boils down to, and I know that you all will step up, and with the help of St. George's Donuts, I'm confident we're going to be able to do that. So we'll be doing the show again out there live. You don't even have to get out of your car. We'll have people that you just come, roll down your window, hand you the donut. Warrior's Journey will be there with us. Incredible organization, helping with the donations, particularly if you do not have cash on you, as oftentimes people don't, the ability to run a card. So you can do the plastic thing, electronic payments, and any and every little bit helps. So we ask that you maybe take a little extra time, even if it's out of your way, to swing by, get a donut, make a donation. That will be next Wednesday at St. George's Donuts, Battlefield and National. We have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, coming up in a moment. I did want to note that there was a recent vote in the Senate in which every Senate Democrat voted against protecting babies that are born alive from abortion. Born alive. Infanticide. As you know, Democrats always claim we don't support abortion up until birth, yet they will never tell you at what point they support it being illegal. I've never heard a Democrat say that. It isn't uncommon when I note the fact that Democrats support abortion up until birth. I will get very angry text messages that isn't true, that's a lie, that Democrats don't support abortion up until birth. And every time I just simply respond, well, then tell me when it is, whether it's just even a statement from the DNC or legislation from any Democrat that states at what point they support it being illegal. Never get a response back. And that's because there is no point. It is up until birth. Yesterday, all 47 Democratic senators voted against moving forward with Senator James Lankford's and Jim Banks' bill, the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. The vote was 52-47, with the bill falling short of the necessary 60 votes. Such common sense legislation would merely protect babies that are born alive from a failed abortion by ensuring that they receive medical care. Republicans have repeatedly tried to get such a bill passed only to face opposition from pro-abortion Democrats who, of course, lie and mislead about the bill and so forth. You think about how dark you have to be. This is beyond. This is abortion after birth. And the reason that this is abortion after birth that every single Democrat has supported in the Senate is because these are babies that were aborted but alive. And so the actual death of the baby doesn't occur until after they're born. This bill would say, no, if the baby's born alive and it is screaming in horrific pain, that common sense and humanity would tell you, you tend to it. No. Wait until that abortion is complete, whether it is an hour later, 10 hours later, however long. That is post birth abortion. I think oftentimes Democrat voters get angry and claim that, oh, this isn't true, or they don't support up until birth, because they even know this is their party. And even for a lot of Democrats, this is beyond Holocaust. This is Holocaust-style stuff. For a political party that likes to claim that we're all in danger because Elon Musk threw a Nazi salute, these are people who support post-birth abortion of living babies born alive. That's just fact. Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Also, that weather check in mere moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Cullerton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high around 33. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 12. For your Friday, sunny skies with a high near 40. And on Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 49.
I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which means it is Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And we welcome Cheryl Chumley, the online opinion editor and host of the Bold and Blunt podcast at the Washington Times, best-selling author, public speaker, frequent media guest for national audiences, and a certified private investigator, Army veteran, and the mother of four. The book, God-Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truth. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. And if you would, tell us, starting off here, what prompted you to write the book?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be with you. And to answer your question, for years and years now, all my writing, whether it's my commentaries or books and my podcast, everything that I put out in the media has been about American exceptionalism and retaining American exceptionalism, which to me is defined as the concept of God-given individual liberties and rights, right? That's what founding fathers gave us. And so while I agree that it's very important for Americans, patriots, Christians in particular, to get involved in politics as well as in culture, I think we should not lose sight of the fact that it's not in the end about who wins in the political realm. It's about reclaiming the concept of God-given individual liberties and rights in America. That is the war. Because if we don't have God-given, then we have government granted. And we've really reached the point in America right now where it's, as my title says, it's God-given or bust, right? It's either we have God-given rights or we're going to lose this great nation of ours.
I like part of the foundational approach here, and it's pretty simple. Those rights, they either are or they aren't. I mean, there's really only two options. I don't think any reasonable person could claim, well, there's a percentage. And so it really does simplify this argument as to whether or not our rights are God-given or they are not. And I wonder, do you find that does simplify it or does it complicate it a bit?
You're absolutely right, and I'm so happy that you grasped that right away because that was my underlying theme, right? We get so involved in fighting this battle, fighting that battle, fighting for the right person to serve in political office, fighting for our school boards, fighting for economic freedom. I mean, everywhere you look, there's a battle to fight, but that gets wearisome, right? That gets fatiguing. It makes us, and it really gets kind of dark and depressing sometimes because you can look around and you can see you get one step forward, 10 steps back constantly. So if you step back, take a breath, and realize that in America, it is either individualism or collectivism, right? It's either government granted, which is collectivism, leading us down the path of that, or it's God-given, which is freedom, and that's the long-term freedom that we need in America. Then it, like you said, it clarifies and it energizes too, because then it also puts the emphasis on God, right? You do your part in your individual sphere of the world, and then leave it to God to take care of the rest. So it really does clarify and it energizes as well.
Historically speaking, there really isn't any legitimate dispute that the founders believed this and understood this. I know that there have been attempts to just delete that history in the minds of people through our education system and otherwise. But once you seek those truths and you see that information is there, but I'm really interested in, I love the discussion about why this is important, why this is significant. And what would you say, for example, to someone who they don't believe in God? How and why this understanding is still important to even someone who doesn't believe in God?
I love that question because I was an atheist. I was agnostic for a very long time in life. I didn't believe in God. And at the same time, even when I didn't believe in God, I understood the brilliance, the genius of founding fathers, what they laid out first in the Declaration of Independence, right, where we first hear about rights endowed from the Creator. And then that was sort of the marching orders for the government documents that they forged after. I understood the genius that if you have a nation with a government that is subservient to a higher power, then that keeps government limited, and that ensures individual liberties and rights for each and every person. So you don't have to be a Bible-thumping Christian to grasp a hold of this concept. You just have to recognize that there is a greater force at work here. And whether you believe in God and you term it coming from the Creator, or you don't believe in God, but you understand that in our Constitution, in our government structure, the foundations of America, our DNA, are the Judeo-Christian principles, which puts God at the helm and government in the role of humble servant to the people.
We're talking with our author of the week, Cheryl Chumley, the book God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths. Oftentimes what I've noticed, and I think we even to some degree saw it on display with a headline a couple of days ago, or the headline yesterday from an event with the president at church, an Episcopalian bishop, utilizing the opportunity to send a political message to the president. And I've noticed, and I'd like you to talk a bit about this, oftentimes people will sort of Trojan horse government in control of your lives by masquerading it as being God-centered. So, for example, they will say, well, the Bible and Christ teaches that we should take care of those that are less fortunate. That means that socialism is good. That means that government needs to redistribute wealth. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say read your Bible. And if you do read your Bible, I would say read it a little bit more carefully, because I've read it many, many times. I read it pretty much every day, and never once I remember Jesus telling the government to give to the poor. It was always an individual relationship, right? You as a believer, you out of love for Christ, you obey Christ's commandments, you obey God's commandments, and you seek to help others for love of Christ and for love of your fellow human brother and sister in Christ. And you do that out of your own pocket. It's not a socialist system that Jesus pushed forward. It was an individual responsibility. Everything was placed on the individual.
Our author of the week, Cheryl Chumley. Again, the book is God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America from Biblical Truths. I'm interested, and you can go into as little or much of this as you want, but you mentioning that you were agnostic. Is your evolution or awakening, enlightenment, however you want to describe it, from somebody who didn't believe to someone who does, was that related to your understanding of where our rights come from? Did one come before the other? I'm just curious of that relationship between your recognition of God and his role in our life and the founding of our country.
So growing up, in I think it was 8th grade, I was assigned the book to read in English class, The Fountainhead. So my political leanings, my beliefs were based on the Ayn Rand type of individual freedoms, right? But as you know, she was an atheist.
Yeah.
So I was basically raised to think that church was just a building where people would go to meet nice people. There was nothing, God in charge. There really wasn't a God. So that's where my political leanings started. And I kept those through my life. But it was more as I moved into adulthood and had influences with people that I loved and cared about, who spoke about God. And then my acceptance of God was actually based not just a spiritual leap of faith, but it was also based in logic. One of the things that I remember distinctly is imagining one day taking a leaf off a tree and going in a dark room, right, with nothing, and creating that leaf, out of nothing. And it just made me think that that's what God did, right? And we as humans don't have the ability to do that. We always have to take something to create out of it. We don't create it out of thin air as God did. So it was sort of a logic meeting faith.
Right, right. Well, and I could be completely wrong on this because I was raised a Christian, but it seems as if that order of occurrences is maybe counter to the way a majority of people, because somebody who believed in God and God gave me these rights. And so then the natural belief and understanding is, well, that's how we should operate here as humans. For you, interestingly enough, through Ayn Rand, developing that philosophy and then finding God afterwards. I wonder how often that occurs. That's just interesting to me.
It is interesting, I guess, when you outline it that way. And to me, it's just an example of God meets you where you are, right? I mean, he knows you best. He created you. So if you're more the thinking type, then maybe he leads you down a path of logic toward him. If you're more the feeling type, emotional type, then, maybe he leads you using feelings and simply faith, and then shows you how later on how his creation is very logical and mathematical even. So
Yeah.
I just think it's an example of God meeting you where you are.
Well, and what a demonstration of what the point you just made, which flies in the face of what oftentimes Christians are described as being based on nothing other than faith. And it's all about just these sort of make-believe fairy tales when, in fact, if you are a logical person, it leads to that conclusion that there has to have been, even from a scientific approach, a creator. And I think that's an incredible demonstration of that. Final thoughts for listeners today and what it is that you hope that they get from the book, God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths.
Well, it's first and foremost educational, right? Kind of prompting readers to get back to that worldview that we need so desperately in America, biblical or Judeo-Christian principles as they apply with the Constitution to modern day events, right, and news. And then I just go through a variety of ways where we're lacking in that worldview and why we need to recapture that. It just, America is an exceptional nation, but we can also rapidly lose that exceptionalism. And all roads here in America lead back to God because, of course, that was our founding premise: religious freedom and individual rights and liberties.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Cheryl Chumley, our author of the week. And again, just a reminder, those of you listening, host of the Bold and Blunt podcast at the Washington Times. The book, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, our author of the week interview, God Given or Bust, Defeating Marxism and Saving America with Biblical Truths. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. You know, this is one of those situations, iwantagreathomeloan.com, in which it's actually good to take advantage of people. It's not always a good thing, but they want you to take advantage of their knowledge. Listen, I get it. A lot of different companies, particularly your big mega banks and institutions, they don't really want to spend time on people they're not going to make money on. It's all about volume. It's all about quotas. It's all about getting that revenue in. And so they're not the type that's going to sit around and just answer your, questions that aren't connected to, are you ready to, start the process right now? Otherwise, don't waste my time. Point being is the characters, they're a resource. Their team, it's a resource. You can have questions about credit. They're obviously very familiar with how it is to help your credit. This is something that credit scores have massive implications when it comes to your home loan. So they're well versed in these things. Point being is that they aren't the type in which they are going to not spend time answering your questions unless they know that you're going to use their services. So take advantage of that. That's a resource there. And the site, iwantagreathomeloan.com, it does in itself have additional information that may be of help to you. It's not simply about getting that process started. So you can visit that also and then get their contact info and reach out for any sort of home loan refinancing questions you may have, or even, like I said, about your credit. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Local for Less Ozark tomorrow. Got a couple things at KSGF.com for those of you who enjoy the theater. Tomorrow, Local for Less Ozark, $25 to get you a $50 gift certificate to Springfield Little Theater's performance of Waitress, so you can utilize that certificate to purchase tickets for a Waitress musical performance at Springfield Little Theater. Those performances January 31 through February 16th. And also, while you are there, a giveaway. Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations. Juanita K. Hall for Performing Arts, January 28th through the 30th. You can win tickets to that at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 33. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 12. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 40, and on Saturday, partly sunny skies with a high near 49.
We were talking earlier about the freak out of people regarding Trump's executive order, saying that, when it comes to the government's perspective on things that involve gender, it's a man and woman. That's the way it's always been. It's been that way through every Republican and Democrat administration until, it's became an in vogue thing to do. So, Biden comes along and we're going to change all that. And it's just nonsense, total nonsense. And you would think that the executive order was to round up and execute transgender people. The way they're acting. They're acting as if the left, that this is going to alter the way of existence. No, it's going to be exactly the same. You will notice no difference whatsoever. None, zero. This is another fine example of the left, particularly the Democrat Party, trying to frighten and scare people about something in which they have no reason to be frightened or scared. This is not going to change anything for you. Nothing. You won't even notice, other than your own fear. And we're having this discussion. We played audio of a number of different things. One, there are 2 bits of audio that demonstrated that when people on the left start talking about the importance and significance of all the different genders, if you ask them how many there are, they don't have an answer. Because there is no answer. It's all made up stuff. I had gotten a text message with a... it's from MSU, and where they ask your gender, and of course it's not just male or female. There's agender, cis female, and cis male, which is female and male. It's just you acknowledge that you admit that that's what you actually are. There's female, gender non-conforming, gender queer, intersex, intersex man, intersex woman, male, non-binary, other gender identity, questioning, trans man, trans woman, transgender, whatever, and two-spirit. You had looked up, Sarah, while we were having this discussion, one particular site, the number of genders, according to one site you looked at, that actually exists. What was that number?
It was 72.
72. So here's what I find interesting. And I sent the person who sent this to me, I was like, is that the whole list? I figured it was, because it's an alphabetical order and it goes from A to the letter T. If there's something that they have listed beyond that, which it's a snapshot. That's the full listing. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And you said how many are there supposed to be officially?
Well, 72, but
72.
Healthline says there's 68.
Okay, so here's my point. According to MSU, on their website, there's only 17. 2 separate sites. Sarah just looked up randomly, 168, 172, or whatever. Now, when you listen to the reaction to Donald Trump signing an executive order saying that there are 2 genders, they are acting as if this is some great attack on transgenders, because by saying there's only, they keep making it about transgenders, which transgenderism, by definition, is reliant on the concept that there are 2 genders. But aside from that, they're all just flipping out. And that by claiming that there's only 2 genders, you are violating the safety, the self-confidence, the mental health of all of these other genders out there. Well, if that's true, if every gender that is left out is an attack on that gender, then MSU is violating a heck of a lot of genders out there. Is MSU not any worse than Donald Trump? Because according to numerous other websites, there's far more than just 17 genders. MSU is leaving out a majority of genders out there, just like Donald Trump is. So if you are going to buy the concept of the left that Donald Trump is anti-this and anti-that, and he's going to create violence against all these other genders because he doesn't recognize them, then you have to also say that about MSU. You have to say that about every single individual or institution who leaves out any gender. The obvious question, of course, is then, well, where is that official list? How is it we know that nothing is being left out? Well, this is part of the problem. There is no official list. When you are part of the left, you just get to make crap up all the time and demand that everyone adhere to your fantasies. Could be 68, could be 78, could be 12, could be, according to MSU, 17. You cannot claim that Donald Trump is doing something horrific and wrong and inhumane because he is not acknowledging all of these other genders, but then give a pass or even praise other organizations like MSU for only identifying 17 because they too are leaving out dozens and dozens of genders, just like Donald Trump is. Now, what people on the left will tell themselves is, well, that's different. And it is different because one's about Donald Trump and the other isn't. And like everything else, it never truly is about the cause. It's about the person they hate or support. If they hate the person, Donald Trump, then when Donald Trump doesn't recognize certain genders, it's evil, it's horrible, it's anti-humane, it's driving people with other gender identities to kill themselves. But if an institution or an organization that they support or like leaves out genders, well, that's perfectly okay. There's no reason to pitch a fit over it. There's no reason to call them transphobic or anything else. All of it is just, it is, here's the thing about this mental illness. The mental illness is not confined to those who live in a fantasy world and don't recognize the reality of XX chromosomes and XY chromosomes. But the mental illness also affects those who could be, who also buys into it, even though they don't necessarily feel that it applies to them directly. Coming up, there's an article, billionaire Michael Bloomberg offers to step in after Trump withdraws from Paris Climate Agreement. Now, this is something that the left should be praising. That they should be the happiest about all of this. I'm going to take a quick break. More on that next. I'm Nick Reed. Michael Bloomberg, billionaire, offers to step in after Trump withdraws from Paris Climate Agreement. Bloomberg's intervention aims to ensure the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change remains fully funded despite the U.S. halting its contributions. The U.S. typically provides 20% of the budget, with the body's operating cost for 24 and 25 projected at $96.5 million. Bloomberg, who serves as the UN Special Envoy on Climate Ambition and Solutions, said in a statement, from 2017 to 2020, during a period of federal inaction, cities, states, businesses, and the public rose to the challenge to uphold our nation's commitment, and now we're ready to do it again. He's talking about the period of time that Donald Trump was president, first time around. This marks the second time Bloomberg has stepped in to fill the gap left by the U.S. federal disengagement. In 2017, following the Trump administration's first withdrawal from the Paris Accord, Bloomberg pledged up to $15 million to support it. He also launched America's Pledge, an initiative to track and report U.S. non-federal climate commitments, ensuring that the world could monitor U.S. programs as if it were still a fully committed party to the agreement. Bloomberg reiterated his commitment to upholding U.S. reporting obligations this time as well. Now, this is another area where, of course, they are going to portray Trump's withdrawal as something horrible and awful, science denier. This already is making the rounds on social media because I had picked the girl child up, and the girl child, she sees all this stuff, but she asks about it. God bless her. She has a curious mind, so she'll ask. I pick her up, and she's like, "What?" She says, "What's this Paris thing that Trump pulled us out of?" So I told her, I said, well, it's virtue signaling. Virtue signaling as doing something to help the environment, which it does nothing to help the environment. The biggest environmental offenders are essentially exempt from it, China and India. And it's a way to extract money out of the United States. That's what it does. But environmentally does nothing whatsoever. And I said, I told her, I said, and this is just a demonstration of Trump's approach, which is different than most people in government. If it isn't doing, first off, is it something that is a good idea anyhow? But if it's not even doing what it's supposed to be doing anyway, there's no point. Trump does not believe in engaging in something that is a waste of time and doesn't do anything. Or worse, it does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. Or if it says it's doing one thing, but it's actually doing something like extracting money out of the United States of America. But that aside, should this not be celebrated by the left? What is it that we always hear about the left? Billionaires. These awful billionaires, horrible. They need to pay their fair share. Here, instead of coming from taxpayers, average working Americans, a billionaire is going to take care of it. Instead of the left flipping out over this and acting as if this is some sort of horrible, embarrassing thing, they should be leading the praise of it. That not only are we still going to be making our commitment to the Paris Accords, but instead of the average single mom working a waitress job having money taken out of her paycheck in order to pay for it, a billionaire's doing it. The Democrat Party should be all over praising this. Well, of course they won't, though. Why? Well, back to the point last hour, because Donald Trump, the whole point is Donald Trump. How can we hate Donald Trump? How can we make so, even though Donald Trump made a move here, that still is going to result in the funding of these Paris Accords, which again does absolutely nothing for the environment, but the burden has been shifted from the average working American to a billionaire. Now, if you're a lefty, how can you be against that? And what's even, see, in their minds, they're shaming Trump. This is fantastic. Now, instead of our tax dollars being totally wasted, fine, you want to blow your money on virtue signaling, Michael Bloomberg, knock yourself out. I don't care what you do with your money. You can do anything you want with it. But they point out in this article here, it's of course, an article. It's supposed to make the U.S. look bad, anti-science, Trump look bad, and notes that, had to do this once before. Billionaires had to pick up the tab once before when Donald Trump was president and taxpayers weren't paying for it till Biden came along and gave the billionaires a break and said, don't worry, I'll make the average working man pay for this again. This is all in complete defiance of what the Democrat Party claims it stands for. Think about it for a moment. Under Trump, first time, second time, billionaires footed the bill for this. Biden comes along, hey, I don't want my billionaire friends to have to pay for this, so he puts us on the hook for it. Trump comes along, says, nope, taxpayers aren't on the hook for this any longer, so a billionaire picks it up, and we're supposed to think that's a bad thing? Who's the party for the rich? Who is it? We're told Trump, all he's doing is looking out for billionaires. Really? Because it sure doesn't seem that way. It's all a waste of money anyhow. But if a billionaire is willing to waste his money instead of being taken from us, I don't know about you, but that seems like a good thing. And you hypocritical, lying, virtue-signaling lefties should be the first to praise this. But you won't, because your hatred for Trump means more to you than anything that you claim you support. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, whether you have an older roof or maybe storm damage from the spring, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they are here to help you with all of your roofing needs, from residential roofing to commercial roofing, metal roofing, roof repairs, whatever you need, they'll do it all for you. They also offer free roof inspections. Whenever you have them out, they are not going to do some type of big presentation that's like 2 hours long, and they're not going to try to upsell you. They're going to just tell you like it is. So if that's what you're looking for a roofing company, you've definitely found it with the Pyramid Roofing Company. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, go ahead and give Josh a call and he'll get you on the calendar. And you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Now, here's a Breitbart story. It's listed as shocking. I don't find it shocking at all. Shocking. Freed Israeli hostages say Hamas was able to use UN facilities to hide them. This is not a shock. We from the very beginning, recognize the assist in a number of different ways that Hamas was getting from the United Nations. Last weekend, 3 Israeli women were released in a high-stakes prison swap, which saw Israel free 90 Palestinian detainees, including convicted terrorists. The women, who endured nearly a year and a half of harrowing captivity under the terrorist group Hamas, described being detained at UN facilities. This included tent camps, humanitarian zones administered by the United Nations Relief and Works agencies. Additionally, reports indicate they were held at the Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. The former hostages are now undergoing rehabilitation following severe conditions that include long periods of underground confinement without sunlight. Woman recounted being subjected to a medical procedure without anesthesia, underscoring the inhumane treatment they faced, all under the watchful eye of the United Nations. In response to the revelation, critics took to social media to express outrage. We need to confirm Elise Stefanik as UN ambassador ASAP and hold the UN accountable for this. They won't be held accountable. Now, Stefanik, by the way, instead of being questioned about situations like this, Democrats were asking her about Elon Musk saluting like Hitler. That's what was important to them. You know, not the actual targeting and torture of Jews, but instead pretending as if Elon Musk is a Nazi. That's where their priorities are. The UN has a very long and consistent track record of humanitarian violations and supporting, validating, and propping up some of the worst and most brutal dictators in this world and rewarding them by putting countries like North Korea as the chair of a Human Rights Council. They are worse than doing nothing for the worst people in the world. They are the biggest supporters of them when it comes to giving them legitimacy. The same people on the left who love the United Nations pitches a fit if Donald Trump pays a compliment to Putin or Kim Jong-un in an effort to manipulate them ultimately. But the United Nations, who actually gives them authority over other countries, the United Nations, who actually gives safe haven to terrorists that are holding Jewish hostages, they love that organization. It should be unfathomable that we have anything to do with the United Nations whatsoever. We should just be out of it. We should cut off all funding, because it is nothing but an organization that only hurts the good players in the world while helping the bad players. And this consistent demonstration and these revelations, whether it's quote, humanitarian aid or actually assisting in giving the terrorists safe haven to hold these hostages. This, according to the report, this is coming from the hostages. They're like, yeah, we're at UN camps. Not abandoned UN camps, not in some abandoned facility that the UN had a lease on but nobody even knew about. These were active facilities being used by the United Nations. The only reason to legitimately be part of the United Nations is if there was some way the United States could completely break it down from within and rebuild it so that it's not a rewarder of the worst players in the world. Other than that, we should just get out completely. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.